Last podcast I mentioned democracy and how much I believe in it and how much it's important to me. Um, and just while I said that, it was ringing around in my head, and I spotted a couple of documentaries. So, what was it about? It was about the consequences of no democracy or no politics. Three things happened. One was it was just news about Speaker of the House of Representatives in Washington, McCarthy. He's vacated his position. The reason that he vacated his position was on account of eight representatives accusing him of being loose with government spending, that he was contributing to the swamp, and that he was generally not good fit for his position. And in McCarthy's speech, he pointed out that there must be a serious flaw in the democratic process in the House of Representatives, where eight people can have the House Speaker ousted, despite the fact that there's some 400 to 450 representatives in the House. So it's quite a stir in American politics, and it American politics seems to be in a lot of crises at the moment, but a lot of that can be resolved just through dialogue, engaging, and some hard decision making. And I'm sure it'll all come through in the end. The second documentary I saw was actually about the rise of neo Nazism in Germany and the general rise in populism and right wing extremism and hardline politics coming into Europe. And I felt kind of concerned watching it. I don't like the idea of politicians saying horrible things like talking about anti-Semitism and religious issues. And but anyways, what the documentary was about, there was an interview with a pair of neo uh, right-wing hardliners, and there was also an interview with a political historian. And as they went through the interview with the two lads, um, the historian would be checking those facts, that the things that we were saying. For example, one thing that they said was that they have a genuine concern for the fact that there's a lot of refugees coming into Germany, taking over their already under-resourced health facilities, social welfare, social breakdown, and they're all going to start supplanting the indigenous German people. And they were asked about what is an indigenous German person, and they made out, well, you have to be here in the country for a long time. It's not a piece of paper that says that you're naturalized. You have to prove yourself to be a German. So, of course, the historian went through those statements, and he categorically pointed out that it was basic racism. And a lot of the rhetoric that they were talking about was very familiar with what Goebbels and Hitler were talking about way back in 1940s. So it was what I got from that was that also um, there was a few clips of large get-togethers of these people of like-minded views, and they were all chanting out all this sort of stuff. And in amongst them would be the right-wing politicians, and it's I had a realization when I saw it, because when you think about it as a politician and you're among a large group of people with, and you know what they're saying and you know what they're talking about, um, as a politician, when in your speech, if you do not throw out exactly what they want to hear, then you're not going to represent them, and you're not going to you probably won't survive long in that group. So instead, the popular or the politician he says exactly what they should be saying or what they're thinking. He's saying, oh, we should protect the borders, we should stop the refugees coming into the country, we should, we should do this, do that, do the other. And, by doing that, the crowd are, they're tamed. They realize, oh yeah, we've got a voice in here. We're relevant. We have a relevant point of view. However, when you look at those people, those that particular group of people, you will find the demographics of it. A lot of them are unemployed, long-term unemployed. They're on the social welfare systems themselves. They have their community issues, community challenges, genuine issues, and they have a genuine fear of these minority groups like the Jews and the Muslims, and they're afraid that they'll be pushed down in the system. And I do stand with them when they say things like that. However, they have to realize that the real solution to um, making Germany more German, the real solution of getting those benefits and getting up in the system is not by putting down a particular group of people. It's about promoting your own culture, your own society, actually going out there, volunteering and helping in the community. That's the only way you're going to get through that an issue like that. Otherwise, if you were to listen to things like that, if we saw what happened in Brexit, they turned their back on Europe, and 8 years later, it's still a freaking mess. So, as a right wing populist politician, to say all those horrible, horrible things, the politician must realize that when he does bring those issues to the table, to national government, that he's only representing a minority in the entire country. So his voice will be heard, but it'll be taken into consideration with everybody else's viewpoints. That mainstream hardline view will be diluted down, and concessions will be made, and it will work towards helping his people, the target audience that he was working to represent. So it's important that the democratic process is allowed to go through it, and it's important that politicians are allowed to say the things that they need to say in order to get get things moving in the right direction morally. Finally, I saw another documentary. It was about a small town in Russia. It's just a small time town where way back in the war, in the Second World War, there was a battle near this town where they had a decisive one of the first decisive victories against the Germans, where the Russians were able to stand their ground and repel the invaders. And in the interview, we were introduced to two people. The first one was a Russian. He goes into the forest. He's paid to go into the forest and dig up the bodies of those fallen soldiers, and to exhume them and bring them back, and to properly look after them. And on top of that, he also goes around locally talking to the old people, getting their stories and their experiences of what happened in the war. And we followed this guy. He's just genuine, down to earth guy in his mid 40s, married, no kids. Um, he goes to visit an old lady's house. Now it's a shack in the middle of the forest somewhere, but she's nice. She's a nice woman, salt of the earth, and she tells her story about what happened when the Germans visited them, and all the atrocities that they had to go through in order to survive it. And at the end of her interview with the Russian guy, she's genuinely heartbroken at the amount of war that's in the world, and the war should stop and there should be peace. And yeah, you can hear it straight from her heart. She's a genuine woman, and she told a very good story, and it was a good story to have documented. Um, we then meet a girl. She's 16 years of age. She's a talented singer and dancer, and herself and her mother go around to all the different towns, going to events. And she's a talented singer. She's particularly good at singing all the old Second World War type songs that were sung, the patriotic songs. And everywhere she goes, she's commended on her talent, her ability. She sings with her heart, and she genuinely is a very nice girl, um, genuine, and great feelings of patriotism towards a country. So we followed those two around this town, anyways, and the town is all about what happened 75, 80 years ago. There's talk of the great monuments that are put up around the town, and people like to get together regularly and celebrate that. And once a year, they have a massive event for it. So, halfway through the documentary, things start to get a little awry. Firstly, during the event, we go to interview um, a retired soldier, and he's got his medals on, his uniform on, and he's at the event in the town. Thing is, he is stoned drunk, stoned drunk. But he does give a good interview. It turns out he fought in Chechnya, and he's all about Putin. He's saying that Putin is the best man in the world for the country. He's brought the pension to them, and they can live out decent lives. And he has to protect Russia from the West, NATO. Um, Furthermore, we see the girl. She goes to a talent competition. She does her best, and the judges commend her on her song and her dance routine. But they say she didn't quite make the list, and that didn't quite impress the mother too much. Furthermore, we see a convention where scatters of young people are being indoctrinated into special brigades. They're only in their teens, 12, 13, 14, 15, and they're already stripping and assembling AK-47s and gas mask routines and the like. And they're all so patriotic and loving of Putin and all the things that Putin is doing for East, protecting Russia from the terrible, terrible West. And at the conclusion of the interview, there's two final interviews. Firstly, of the young girl, um, they ask her a question. They say, "Who is the enemy?" And she stops. She's actually, for the first time in the entire documentary, she's lost for words. And eventually, she mumbles, "Oh, the West and the terrorists and the terrorists in the West and NATO." And it's at this point that the mother starts to speak for her daughter, and she says, "Speak loudly, speak more confidently. Say what you're saying. Don't be mumbling. Why won't you tell them about Putin and how well he's doing for us and how he's giving us a pension so that we can go around and we can promote the idea of war among our people, and that Putin is great. He's protecting the West. And when you're finished your career as a dancer, singer, you're going to find a nice Russian boy and you're going to settle down and have babies, and they'll go on to fight the war, the great patriotic war." And in the middle of this spiel, the camera is still on the girl's face, and behind her glasses, you can see a small tear welling up, and she's lost for words. She can't say anything, and eventually she just says, "I love my mother. She really takes care of me. I love what she has to say about everything that I do." Um, getting back to the Russian guy, um, his final interview, he, instead of the interviewer asking him the questions, he's kind of quizzing the interviewer, and he's turning to the camera and he's saying, "This is all really about intelligence. You're sending this film back to the West just to see what it's like here in Russia." And when he said that, he it he he's it brought up a few more words. Firstly, he said that this kind of thing is going on all across Russia. All across Russia, there's you're paid, you're either paid, you're given a pension to either promote the idea of the war, great patriotism. You're paid to promote patriotism and the war against the West and NATO, and to support Putin. Otherwise, you won't get paid, and you will just wither away and evaporate, and nobody will care. And this is the same all across Russia. We're trapped, he says. We're trapped. You know, it was some very poignant documentary. It was Deutsche Welle. I'll put the links in the description. So when I think about politics, and I think about what did they do 10,000 years ago? Okay, three lads, empty stomachs, right? They need to go hunting. How do they figure out who does what? So you could be leftist, what you call it, liberal, and you know, come together and they'll consent. We'll make a decision and we'll vote on it and we'll argue and debate, and maybe eventually we'll strike off in a particular direction. We might get something. Odds are, if there's a big enough group of lads doing it, you might come home with a bit of mammoth or half a chicken wing or something. You might get something out of it. Alternatively, you could turn to the strong character in the group who's saying, "I know where I'm going. We go that way. I don't care. We'll keep going that way until we find something, and we'll come back." Now, that person, he's mainstream, hardline. Either he's going to deliver the goods, or somebody's going to end up in the pot. Either he is or you are. And finally, there could be no discourse whatsoever between the lads. They'll just wither up and evaporate and go away, and nothing will become of them. So, just one final conclusion to that: politics is like a good marriage. You know, sometimes the power is on one side. It flip-flops the balance. There's always an inequality, and you have to be able to work through those inequalities. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. It's a bad analogy for the wife, I have to say. Finally, patience or impatience for victory is the seeds of self-destruction. That's all I have to say tonight. Take care.